Welcome to our huddle around warehouse maturity featuring Zebra Technologies. We're excited to have you here and we are ready to get started. So I'd like at this point to go ahead and bring on my fellow panelists. So please go ahead and bring yourself onto camera. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. Welcome, welcome. So for everyone who hasn't met me yet, I'm Jody Costa. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Barcoding Incorporated. I am coming to you live from my home office. So we all know what that means. Just hedging my bets there. But I'm thrilled to be here with you all today and really dive deep into a brand new, really exciting strategic framework that Zebra Technologies has come out with around warehouse optimization and automation. And so I'm thrilled to be able to kind of have this conversation today with you all and to go ahead and get started. So like we do with all of our huddles, just to kind of break the ice and get things going, we're going to start with some introductions. So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and then we'll go around the room.
Thanks, Jody, and thanks everybody for spending some time with us today. My name is Mark Wheeler. I'm sure I know many of you out there and have worked with you over the years. I've been part of Symbol Moto Zebra now for over 15 years, and for most of that time been directly supporting our sales efforts as a subject matter expert in warehousing. And for the last couple of years, moved into our strategy organization, where I'm guiding our strategy with regard to really supply chain execution, mainly on-premise warehouse and plant operations.
All right, well, thank you, Jody. It's so nice to be on the huddle. My name's Amanda Honig. I lead our marketing strategy for the manufacturing and T&L vertical in North America. I also came from the Symbol Moto Zebra acquisitions. I've been with the company about 14 years now. And I spent the first half of my time here in the business unit doing product management for mobile computing. And then this last half through marketing and now here in the vertical.
That's awesome. Welcome to you both. And we're thrilled to have you as well as your very cool backdrops of the model. I like that we are matching with our companies. Carrie and I are in the conference room. Carrie, you want to give a quick intro to the group?
Sure. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Carrie Corbin. Jody and I are in the same conference room in completely different states. I'm actually located down in South Carolina. So I've been with Barcoding about 8 months now as the Vice President of Client Solutions. So I have responsibility for product and managed services, working with Jody on some delivery framework. My past is a lot of time in project and service management at multiple supply chain companies. So I bring that experience with me to the Barcoding team. Thanks for having me, Jody.
You are welcome. And I'm happy to hear from all of your perspectives. I think we've got a really good group to dive in. So I think we all know why we're here today. And, we're into the second month of 2021. We are obviously still all in all different states kind of managing through the COVID-19 response. And one of the things that I always, when I have these conversations about warehousing, distribution, and the supply chain in general, is that for many of us who were lucky enough to, for our lives to not be as disrupted, one of the things that we learned was we still love to shop. So we may not be going into stores, but we are still some great consumers out here. And we have turned to e-commerce and buying online more than ever. And I think that's one of the main drivers of the pressures and the order volumes that have come onto warehouse and distribution, 3PL, retailers. And there's just so much that is forcing companies to look at automation, not as kind of a nice to have, but a must have in order to make sure that we're still meeting our customer expectations, but also to really grow and thrive and handle the pressures that are coming our way. So, some of us have started to delve into using a company like an Instacart for the first time, right? So I know family members of mine never would have attempted this kind of e-grocery, scenario. Now they're hooked. They tried it one time during the pandemic and now they can't stop ordering groceries from their phone. So I think I want to just set the stage is that this backdrop, we're all living in it, we're all consumers, but we're also professionals who support these processes. And I think that's one of the things I'm excited about with Zebra Technologies, your research, and also this new model that we're going to get into. So I want to just open up our conversation around, can you give us a little bit more, Zebra team, can you guys give us a little bit more of your perspective on where we are today, what the pandemic has meant for the warehousing, distribution, logistics sector, and some of the things that we can kind of think about in terms of trends?
Yeah, I guess I'll kick that off. We started our work on the model long before, the COVID, right? So the trend, a lot of the trends that you mentioned were well underway prior to the pandemic. And what we saw with the pandemic was this dramatic acceleration in e-commerce in certain channels. Other channels to market were negatively impacted for sure. I don't think there's a major supply chain operator, whether a manufacturer, 3PL, or retail or wholesale, that wasn't impacted in some way, either positively or negatively in a large way. So what we see right now is, a lot of supply chain professionals that are sort of stepping back and looking at the big picture and saying, okay, is this the new normal? And so now we're looking at growing off of this new base. And if you're in grocery retail, as you alluded to, that base is probably double what we thought it was going to be 12 months ago. I think the consensus is, this is the new normal. That's our best guess anyway. And that's why you see, I think, a lot of grocery retailers in particular really ramping up their investments in, micro fulfillment or local fulfillment technologies. But across the board, what we see is a lot of change. So there's change that's driven at a kind of a business level, which says, do I have the right distribution network for this new world? Because I really have to answer that question before I can go in and decide, is this warehouse working exactly the way I want it to? So we, talking big picture, drilling down to the warehouse. The idea, before even coming into the pandemic, we were kind of struggling. A lot of operators were struggling with getting the labor that they wanted, the labor that they needed. They were reaching out aggressively for automation alternatives because the labor wasn't always there. That's certainly still the case, maybe more so going forward. So this idea of all this innovation, intelligent automation making an impact as well. So we really think it's important to help the Zebra community and the extended Zebra community have these kind of broad-ranging conversations with our customers about, where are you operationally? Are you hitting the KPIs that you want to hit? How do we get you from point A to point B? And then you also have this, lots of other technological innovation around visibility. In manufacturing, they tend to refer to it as the industrial Internet of Things or manufacturing 4.0. But we see it across the board, all the operating environments that we're active in, of course, healthcare, retail, manufacturing and production environments, this idea of using sensor technology in ways that we couldn't in the past. And so a lot of what we're going to get into today is about, well, how does all that work in the warehouse, and what is Zebra doing about it? And Amanda?
Well, I think, Jody, you might be having some questions on, well, given all the trends that Mark just came up with, why did we decide to create a model? And I think there's I know there's two reasons why we did come out with that. And a lot of it is what Mark just spoke about, is looking at all these different challenges that we're facing our customers. When you think about the boom in e-commerce, and now that just exacerbating as a result of COVID, and Zebra wanting to decide, how do we help our customers through this? Like, knowing that they have this challenge and there is a need and a want to leverage technology and modernize. But in some cases, a customer might not have a mobility strategy in place yet, and they might be asking themselves, well, where do I even start? And that's a very different conversation from someone who has a mobility strategy and is maybe a little more sophisticated in one area of their business, and maybe they want to bring mobility to other areas of the business. And that's kind of a different conversation on how do we look at what's being done here and have that conversation with maybe other groups within that company. So there was one aspect of we're trying to help our customers, and how do we facilitate a better discussion to really understand what's going on in their operation. And then I think on the other hand, you have Zebra that is now a provider of end-to-end visibility solutions through multiple acquisitions. And we were kind of looking at how we go to market and message, and we didn't really have a comprehensive, warehouse view or story. We had all these different great solutions, but how do you get that in front of a customer without kind of overwhelming them? So those two main factors are what really made the case for building this maturity model, so that we could facilitate a better discussion and be able to showcase the solutions that we offer in kind of a more like effective and easy to understand way.
Yeah, I mean, that between those first two answers, there's a lot to unpack. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of get through this, but absolutely, I think that Carrie and I both have seen this too. It is overwhelming. And Mark, you alluded to that these pressures and these trends started before the pandemic response, but were somewhat accelerated through this very disruptive world that an experience that we're all going through. And then, Amanda, this wealth of possibility, I think that's out there, that's only increasing, is very hard to kind of, it is hard. It's hard to wrap your arms around, and we do this for a living. So I always think, gosh, to always know what's coming or have a plan for how to get there can be very difficult. So I want to kind of dive into a little bit more just on the trends around labor, because I think that was a really important point, Mark, that you brought up. And I think it is always something that at Barcoding, we're looking at the intersection between technology and people. And I think that's where we really match up well to Zebra. So can you talk through a little bit about kind of that worker but plus workflow optimization with technology as a driving factor?
Yeah. So when you look at what I think for me, I mean, I've been in this business a while, and really just the last probably 3 or 4 years is where I've seen customers look at labor as a truly constrained resource. It's like, yeah, I can pay $1 more or a quarter more or $2 more, and it won't matter. I still won't get the people I need to run my operation. And that's what we heard, for really 2 or 3 years at least, from a lot of different sources. So that fundamentally changes, I think, the way you look at technology, because it's no longer, can I make this person 3 or 4% more productive? It's how do I make sure that I can run, if I can't get all the resources I need in this particular area. And I think that's certainly colored the attitude of customers towards automation. It's also colored the attitude of customers towards mobility, where you really have to not only of course, make the operators as productive and effective as they can be. So you think about accuracy and things like that come into play. But you want to attract workers. So you want to give them tools that they want to use, that are intuitive to them. And we know that workers coming into the warehouse today, chances are they've been using a capacitive touch application their entire lives. That's all they know. So they're expecting that. They're expecting technology that's intuitive, that's easy to use. And certainly, we're as an industry, we're in the process of delivering on that.
Yeah, Carrie, I think that's something that's you've kind of lived through. So if you want to comment.
Yeah, I just happened to read an article a couple of days ago that most warehouses are looking at about a 35% turnover ratio right now. So, to Mark's point, when you start thinking about, getting devices in their hands that they know how to use, you also have to start thinking about, if I am short on labor, how I can ensure that those resources are trained on all the different skills within the warehouse with a device that they're familiar with. So, with moving to Android, the ability to put multiple apps on a single device, so that user, as they kind of stay with you, can cover for areas of work that they may not have been fully trained on, but that training cycle is a lot shorter because you're using technology that they're familiar with. The touch screen, to Mark's point, that most of this generation has been using it from the very beginning. They don't know the Blackberries and the Motorola QWERTY key phones quite like we do. And so I think it's not only expecting that touch screen, but again, the ability to have everything that you need on a single device and not have a bunch of other things hanging off you or walking across the warehouse is key to attracting and keeping the resources there versus, them leaving and going somewhere else where they have those opportunities.
Yeah, and I know that from my my coursework, thanks to Amanda and team, I'm learning the model as well, right along with you all. That this is a critical component to some of the more advanced phases. So before we get really excited and don't catch up our audience, I think now's the right time to let's bring up the model. Let's talk through it at a high level, and that way we can start to really dive in to how to use this strategic framework. So Mark, if you do want to share the screen, because I know even though it's behind you, we may want to see it up a bit closer. But that's one of the things I really liked was when we started to dive into this with Zebra, and barcoding led some research programs the last couple of years into this same type of digging into these same types of issues. And I think what I love is that this strategic framework, because we're talking about conversations, right? Like the one we're having today, is going to allow all of us to just be able to do more, right? And we're all driving towards the same goals. And so I think that this gives us a nice way to have those conversations and move forward. So it looks like we've got it up on the screen. So Mark, you want to kind of walk us through this?
Sure. Like Amanda said, the goal of this is really to facilitate a productive sales conversation, or just a conversation about, what are the customer's needs and what are the tools available to meet those needs. And a big part of this is just the realization that, I look at the warehouse space and the way real-time warehouses have been driven by technology my entire career. I mean, so going back 30 years to when the real-time WMS was invented, it's been very stable and very consistent. And yeah, we've gone from maybe character-based in Telnet to, now we're going to Android and user user-friendly experiences. But that basic kind of paradigm of the WMS drives the transaction, the user responds, that's what drives the warehouse. That's really one of the things that's poised to change and is changing, and that's something that you'll see is reflected in the model. And I mention that because fundamentally what we're talking about when we look at phase 1 and phase 2, those are the phases that we're all familiar with. Those are the methods of running an operation that are based on that model. We call it transactional mobility or transactional data. The WMS really gets.
This is where most folks probably.
Absolutely. This is where 90% of operations are today. Absolutely. So you can think of phase 1 being, really basic. And we're actually entering the model in phase 1 with customers that they're already mobilized all the material moves. So there's really a phase 0. And there's a fair number of operators out there that are in 0 that haven't gotten to that point yet. But each of these phases, we generally are going to have different priorities and different objectives. 1 and 2 really looking at using the mobile technology within that framework of transactional data. A phase 1 operation would be, low volume or otherwise, very low complexity. And generally their priority is, I really want to minimize the amount of technical complexity to just get control. I just want to get control of material moves. I want to have, good inventory accuracy. I want to make my shipments. But because of the low volume or the low complexity, I'm not overly concerned with optimizing, each experience. As we go over to phase 2, this is the higher volume operation, again, still within that same framework that says, well, I've got a lot of complexity, or I've got a very high volume operation, or complexity can come from lots of different areas in a warehouse. It can come from order volume. It can come from a stringent regulatory environment like healthcare. It can come from a high SKU count. It can come from lots of temperature requirements. All of that adds to the need for technology. And so in phase 2, we really need to, and we have a good business case for optimizing the way that mobility tools are used within the facility. So we're going to really dial in on each use case and make sure that we've got the right mobile technology for that particular use case. As we go forward into the latter phases, this is where we start to leverage, true real-time data and true real-time visibility. And so rather than that transactional data that says, okay, go put this away. All right, it might take you 5 minutes to do that. When you get there, scan the location and we'll go from there. As we move into 3 and 4, we've got technology that's always on. So, that's sensor-based, it's true real-time. And the way we distinguish between the phases, phase 3 is really very targeted. And this is how almost everybody gets started, right? This is the RFID portal. This is where I might be using, Bluetooth Low Energy or some other location-aware technology to solve a particular point problem. And that's how most customers get started in these kind of solutions. Smartpak trailer from Zebra is a perfect example of that. It's a very sophisticated solution, but it's really just targeted to trailer loading and unloading. And as we get into 4, we're taking that same idea and extending it over a large part or the entire facility. So that's, from a Zebra perspective, that's Motionworks Warehouse. That's that kind of technology. And what distinguishes, I think, in some ways, the warehouse from other operating environments. So when we think about leveraging true real-time sensor-based technology, that is happening across the board. It's happening in healthcare and clinical care. It's happening in the retail store. They've got to do, local omni-channel fulfillment in an environment that, compared to a warehouse, is utterly chaotic because customers are coming in and doing things that we don't know about, or a manufacturing floor, generally much less structured. They've been using this kind of technology for quite some time, although they're certainly adopting more of it. The warehouse is a well-run warehouse is a very controlled environment, and the legacy approach works pretty well. In some cases, it works very well. But what we found is that most larger operators, more complex operators, they know that they have a huge opportunity to improve by leveraging some of these new sensor-based technologies, and they're very interested in finding out, what the capabilities are and how they can leverage it. And we just found we were having 2 separate conversations. We were talking about the traditional use of mobility in the warehouse, and we'd finish that conversation and open up a whole new one about what they could do with all the different locationing technologies, what we might be able to do with computer vision, all the things that we can do with sensor-based technology that's always on. And it's related to the labor situation because, like we said, onboarding is a huge expense. If I'm turning over 30%, so obviously sometimes could be more or less. Our own survey indicates that the average onboarding time is about 6 weeks before they're fully up to rate and fully effective. So that's a huge hard dollar cost. And if I can kind of error-proof the operation without having to go through extensive training and all that goes into that, and still get very good results through using sensor technology, I want to do that. And so, we find that, as I said, customers come to the table. They usually have 1 or 2 situations that they really need to improve their results on. They've got a couple of KPIs they're just not getting to with the traditional approach, and they're excited about what these things can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cool, and I think one of the things that just in case we have some listeners who are feeling sad because they've identified in phase 0, don't feel sad, right? This is not, there's no judgment in the model, right? So we're just using it as a tool, and so one of the things that, as I was learning this, that really stuck out to me was, one, it was really about your goal, right? So you talked about in, kind of these early phases, that goal being control. So maybe taking an environment that is not controlled and adding that sense of control, right? And so, having this model be predicated on these goals really starts to help you understand how to use it, right? And one of the things that we see in the barcoding space is that we definitely do still get lots of inquiries from folks who are in a phase 0 who may be completely new. But we also have plenty of customers who are in that move, because we only touched upon it, but that move to Android. So with the end of life of Windows Mobile and this in the sheer amount of benefits that you can get kind of moving to an Android operating system, I think it'd be wise for us to kind of spend a little bit of time, because a lot of people are talking about that, How does that Android migration modernization story really play out in phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah, I think in phase 1, what we want to do, and a lot of times these customers are growing rapidly, and they've found that operating without this technology has suddenly become very painful. The more visionary ones will understand that you really have to look out probably 2 years in terms of what your business is going to be like and plan for that today in terms of how you view technology. But so the objective in phase 1 is to get control. The objective in phase 2 is to optimize the use of that technology. But it is, depending on the customer, phase 1 may be a perfectly appropriate place for them to be. They may not have the business volume or the justification to invest the time and the effort to move to phase 2 and optimize the use case on a case-by-case basis. Same for 3 and 4. There's absolutely no expectation that everybody should be moving to phase 5. It really depends on the operations and their particular operational goals.
Yeah, and Carrie, I know that since you're close to the customers who are in these early phases, and you've kind of seen this. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've seen between this idea, kind of not just gaining control, but optimizing these processes and kind of the intersection of that Android platform?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I have noticed, we talk a lot about the pandemic and how it's affected, the way that we go about doing things. I think, the other thing for all of us to remember is it also came at the beginning of this Android journey for a lot of companies where budget may have just been approved for the beginning of last year, and you were starting to make a move on really what is phase 1 and 2 in this model, and starting to look at how these devices would help impact your warehouse, help your users, everything that comes with Android around, again, getting to a single device and allowing users to do multiple things to increase productivity. And so, to your point, Jody, being at phase 1, there's probably a lot more people, or phase 0, I think there's a lot more people hanging out there and fighting really hard to get to phase 1 and 2. With all grace, had to take a step back to get through last year. And so I think that when we sit down and talk to our customers, they're a lot further along than they expect that they are. Everybody's kind of like, oh, I'm coming into this and I don't know what's going on. But when you really sit down and start asking the right questions, like talk to me about what issues you're trying to solve. Talk to me about what's a day in the life of your mobile users experience. What do they really like about the devices? Because as shocking as it's been to me in my career, there are a lot of people who don't want to let go of the very old, very, very old Zebra devices.
Don't take it from me.
Yeah, do not take my brick on a stick from me and let me keep this. And so, what do they like about what they're currently using? What are their concerns about the new devices? And then, what are we hearing from them regarding where there's inefficiencies that may be really gaps that are very easy to close simply by implementing the new devices? And then again, the next step is, what are the applications and other processes that we can lay on those devices to continue to connect the workers? Zebra has some great tools in the push to talk space and other things that, I'm sorry?
Connecting teams, as you were talking, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah. Just connecting the worker individually, but connecting a team.
Right. And so, that technology became more interesting when you start thinking about how do you train users on the floor, but not stand directly next to them? How do you talk to a user from maybe across the room who's having a problem, and because you're trying to, keep people kind of in specific spaces due to COVID, how do you use some of these tools to allow to do those things? I know at my previous company, there was a lot of talk about how do we stand up a warehouse without sending the 15 people in there to train everybody on how to use the devices and how to log into them and all that stuff. And all of these are Zebra tools that we were able to talk through and figure out how to implement so that you could send 2 or 3 people in versus 10 or 15. And so that's, you know, that's where the tools are really connecting workers with management and supervisors and peers kind of at their purest form. But there's all this other really creative stuff that has come with, you know, to Mark's point, what does this look like in the future? Is this what it's going to be? And if so, let's get creative with the tools that we have and then look where there still might be some gaps.
Yeah, one of the things that we've really tried to work through for each one of these phases is understanding or appreciating, let's say, that operations and IT really have slightly different interests in these situations and different concerns, and make sure that we're, you know, addressing those directly. And when you look at phase 1, you know, operations, they're just trying to get control. IT is saying, well, don't overwhelm me with complexity. And so they might have a bias towards, let's just get one device to do everything. And sometimes that's the right answer, but we want to help them understand a couple of things. First of all, as you go to Android, there's this tremendous level of consistency, even though the form factors look very different. And the consistency at a platform level is very, very high. The tool set is the same. So in terms of deploying, updating, and securing, you know, from an IT perspective, you're going to be okay. From an operations perspective, it's, as you were alluding to, I mean, it really help them understand that a lot of the value of being part of, for example, of the Zebra ecosystem here at Android is all the software that comes with it. So all the mobility DNA tools and everything that, you know, that our partners like Barcoding are doing to say, look, you can deploy these apps and get a lot more value out of these devices than just being a, you know, a slave to the WMS. Not that that's, you know, there's anything wrong with that, but you know, Workforce Connect, for example, keeping the employees connected. You know, what can I do? You know, there's typically 2 reasons why you get together as a big group routinely in the warehouse. You know, neither of what you want to do anymore. One is the, you know, startup shift huddle, where you talk about lessons learned and maybe some safety cues and, you know, what to expect for the shift. Yes, you'd like to use a device to handle that communication at a distance. Another one is, of course, training. You know, every warehouse you walk through, there's a training room, and employees are brought together, you know, very frequently for a variety of different you know, requirements, and a lot of times that training can be delivered on an individual basis through the device. And, you know, it's just a couple of examples, but you know, helping them understand that yes, there's a platform approach, and you can, you know, operations, you can get the dialed in functionality you want, and IT, you can get that consistency from a management platform perspective as well.
Yeah, I want to stay, and I love that you brought up the differing interests, although everyone's still kind of pulling in the same direction, that IT and ops might, the different lenses, I guess, that they might bring to this. But in keeping with, because we've kind of been touching a lot on the operational side, in keeping with that theme, before we move on to IT specific, what I found interesting as you move up into the more advanced phases is this sense of expansion, right? So expansion of automation, visibility, instrumentation of things, bringing assets to life, right, with sensors, as well as orchestration. So how are things being orchestrated? How are you consistently bringing systems together so that this data gets used in a more and more proactive way, I guess? So if Mark, you want to talk through a little bit more to those points, kind of as you move through phases 3 through 5.
Yeah, I mean, as we get into 3 through 5, as I said, we're kind of using that eye in the sky, using those sensors to error-proof the processes and to make them more timely. So, you know, one of the innovations that we see coming on pretty strong are the autonomous mobile robots, or AMRs. And as the name implies, part of their value proposition is they know where they are. They keep track of where they are in real time. And what we see are these solution providers, they're actually gathering lots and lots of interesting operational data because they are, you know, they know where everything is in real time. And we certainly see an opportunity to help our customers get more out of those solutions by understanding where the humans are in real time and coordinating their activities beyond just, okay, I know the last location that this person scanned. And I think that's a small example, but an important one of where, by having the sensor technology and knowing, having in real time, knowing where these mobile assets are, whether they're robots, and optimizing that interaction with the humans. I think, it's something that a lot of folks are looking at, but one small example. I've talked to many customers over the years that wanted to be able to leverage RFID, but we just didn't have the technology to solve the problem that they wanted to solve. And now with the ATR, this wide area reader, you can put one reader in the ceiling and it covers 15 to 1,800 square feet. And I can now, not just know that something is somewhere in that 1,500 square feet, but know exactly where it is. I think that opens up a lot of possibilities. And I see that mainly on the receiving dock or on the shipping dock, where if I have tagged product coming in, I can essentially run my receiving operation no touch. If I have tagged product going out, I can validate that everything is staged. I can validate how things have been loaded. And it allows me to detect issues before any human knows that the issue is there. So I think that's particularly valuable in a less structured environment like a cross-dock, where I'm reacting in real time. I've got an inbound, I've got to react in real time to plan my outbound, and that kind of visibility can be really valuable.
That's awesome. And it also, I know that I know that from some of the responses that we got, people were definitely curious to know if Zebra and robots had come together, which answer is yes, right, Mark?
Well, we have, I think it's public information. We've invested in a couple of the leaders like Locus and Fetch and Plus One, and we're working with our partners and doing some of the things I referenced.
Yeah, no, this is why, it's what the huddle's all about, right? Digging into the stuff that we may not know about yet. Maybe our folks missed that message, but very cool intersection of technology and people. I think, especially when you look at a robotic or auto guided vehicle kind of application, where you're using kind of a technology infrastructure to better, basically the work of a person and a robot together, right? It's not an either or scenario.
I think on the robotics, it kind of plays really well into the maturity model to look at, well, what kind of robotic support do you need? Because you're right, there's some that kind of completely replace the worker. There's others where the worker and the bot work together, like the cobot situation. And then there's one where it's to that plus one perspective, where it's like the robotic arm that's, moving small parcels as they come down a line. So that's almost like its own like maturity model there of which technology do you use for which application.
Right. Back to the benefit of this framework, helping us have the right conversations to get to those answers, right? And not just starting with the technology, although I just kind of led you down the robot path. But that's just because I have a sneaky interest in robots and understanding better. But yes, having those, again, going back to this being a framework for you to use, starting with that goal first and foremost, and then kind of understanding what's possible, I think, within those spaces. And that's what I like about what you're seeing on the screen, and you can see the whole picture. So even if where you are today isn't where you want to be, you can kind of get a sense very quickly looking at this of what's possible. And I think that the gains that you find in operations, often are due to getting closer and closer to not just real-time data, but predictive data, right? So I can make better and better decisions, more reliable decisions, more consistent decisions. And then eventually in that phase five, right, the machines are starting to make my decisions for me.
Yeah, I think, the very sophisticated operators they're already trying to figure that out. But yeah, it's really about you think about what is a receiver, when a pallet comes off a truck today and the receiver has to figure out, is that a good pallet or not? Does it match the advanced ship notice? Is it the right product, right quantity? Is it undamaged? Can I go ahead and put this away? And how long does it take to train somebody to be able to do that? Well, the question is, well, if I had 3 or 4 different types of sensors and I just automatically read that pallet, could I make as good a decision about those factors and go ahead and put that pallet away with a high degree of confidence that I've made the right call. I think those are the kinds of things we're looking at.
So, in general, right, we've gone through the framework and we're starting to think about what's possible with, partnership between Barcoding and Zebra and what we bring to the table. I get this sense that, with all of these operational gains, you still have an IT infrastructure that, to me, as you move through the model, gets bigger and bigger. Which again, most, a lot of companies are already dealing with this. Let's talk about the IT perspective here, because as we deploy more and more technology, I'm assuming that there's going to need to be a need to talk about security, about management, support. Obviously, things break. I love hearing about, or I don't love it, but I've heard about people running devices over with forklifts and whatnot, and things happen. So can we talk through the IT perspective maybe as you go through the model? And then Carrie, I think you can talk through about, kind of our perspective on that IT support specifically.
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to the tool set that's available, that Android unlocks a lot of capability there. I think, a lot of our customers that are moving from the legacy Windows to the Android environment really are just beginning to scratch the surface on what they can do on this platform. And so there's a lot of growth right there in phase 2 to take advantage of all those tools and capabilities. And as we move out into the sensor world, I think there's going to be decisions to be made about what happens on premise and what happens in the cloud. And I think we'll see an evolution of customers who are more and more willing to put capability in the cloud and to just pump this data up there and let the analysis happen there. So that'll be kind of an ongoing conversation, as it has been on the manufacturing side for the last few years.
Right. Carrie, any thoughts on the IT perspective for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start talking about run support, obviously the most important thing to anyone running an operation is uptime and the ability for their technology to not only be efficient, but be working. And when it's broken, how do you quickly and effectively manage the break fix? So, working with Zebra, we have our BOSS tool for the RMA process. We do spare pool to get devices back in the hands of the resources. But there's also things like when you talk about efficiencies, field service opportunities where you go out into the warehouse and take a look at what they're doing today and see how we can help be more efficient, or where there might be the wrong devices in the wrong hands, or the way that the devices are being used. So I think and then security and patching, which Jody knows I could go on and on about security concerns. As we kind of move through the Android journey and really partnering with our customers on, how do we ensure that the devices are secure and our customers' data is secure, but also their customers' data is secure, and how we put plans together to ensure that when the time comes to do some kind of an OS upgrade, we're not impacting the warehouse from productivity. So, I think, as you move through the model, there's run services or run services, the level of details that you go into with them, whether it's just the hardware or supporting the applications on the hardware. The services are the same at their core. It's just ensuring that we have the right people working on them, with the right level of instruction to get our customers back up and running in the event that there's a problem.
I mean, I'm assuming, it is a lot, and it's something that we're very passionate about, right? In terms of helping our customers take some of that burden off of their plate, allow us to do some of the management of this infrastructure while they can then continue to build, towards some of these bigger goals. But I guess that's still part of the calculus here, right? So does a company, what parts does a company outsource? Where do we lean on partners? Where do we not?
Yeah, so we spent some time talking about labor in the warehouses, but the IT labor is not in much better shape in regards to the number of talented resources to jobs that are open. That gap continues to get wider. And hopefully, as we encourage young people to get into IT as a field, we'll see a turn in that. But you want your really good resources working on strategy. You want your good resources in the room with Mark and the team and Barcoding and the team to talk about this maturity model and how you get, to whatever phase you need to be in. What you don't want them doing is working on a spreadsheet, doing asset management, tracking issues. Those are all things that, barcoding, we do that. That is part of what we offer and part of what we know that we're good at. So let us take those types of tasks off of the people that work for our customers and let them focus on the bigger picture and having the conversations around how do we connect our workers? How do we get to a place where, we can get to a phase 4 or 5 of this while, we kind of worry about the easy stuff, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw a question come through about IT maturity. So I think, Amanda, you might be busy. There's going to be need for maturity models for every kind of.
Yeah, as we were going through building this and introducing it to other people within Zebra, a lot of them started saying you can really apply this kind of framework to every vertical or to every area. We could have a maturity model for so many different parts of the business. So agree with you.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And I think just to kind of keep it fun, because we're coming up into our last 15 minutes, but this isn't a rapid fire because I promised I wouldn't do straight rapid fire, but I do have a fun question for both Amanda and Mark, and Carrie, if you want to jump in, sure. I want to know your favorite Zebra solution for each phase. So if you had to pick one, you only get one, your favorite in each phase, what would it be? So for phase 1, Amanda, what's your favorite Zebra solution for phase 1?
Well, I came from mobile computing, so I think I'm always going to come up with like an Android mobile computer is my favorite solution in phase 1.
Mark, do you agree?
Well, yeah, I really do. I have to agree. And I think, I think the new, the 3000 series is a great place to start in phase 1.
All right, phase 2. Okay, we're moving down the funnel. So Amanda, favorite Zebra solution in phase 2?
Well, I like building on leveraging those Android devices. So I really love Workforce Connect. I think it's a great communication tool and a good way to kind of, remove that what we call was like the bat belt where you have like a walkie-talkie and your phone and mobile computer. So I love Workforce Connect as a phase 2 application that can sit on top of that Android device.
Cool. Mark, favorites?
Well, phase 2, and I've done a lot of warehouse walkthroughs, and it's rare that I couldn't find at least one operation in a warehouse that they couldn't benefit from, either using or better using wearable technology. And it's just so easy to see once you're looking for it. You start to see operators that are trying to carry, a box with the handheld at the same time, or they're setting down the handheld and doing something or whatever. Anything that's taking their either physical or mental attention away from what the task is because of the technology. That's usually low-hanging fruit. That's usually a really good ROI. And now my favorite would be the new wearable display and what our Fulfillment Edge team has been able to do with that. I think that's a really cool innovation in wearables.
Excellent. We're making our way to phase 3. Amanda, what do you got for phase 3?
I'm really excited about the fact that RFID, I think, is becoming more accessible and like a reality, where I think Mark was saying in the past that people knew how they'd want to use it and just wasn't, the ROI wasn't there. So for me, it's starting to leverage that RFID technology for kind of that hands-free approach to tracking your assets.
Mark?
Well, I have to go with Smartpak trailer, and it's been out there a few years, but it's a dedicated sensor platform. It's got LiDAR, it's got RGB camera, and you mount it, and it just looks into the dock door, and it's fixed there. And companies, they spend a lot of money on transportation.
Mhm.
And you think about how much real data they have about how that load was loaded, or if there was damage, do they have any data about how it could have been prevented or what caused it? Maybe the dock manager goes down there and takes a picture with the phone or the camera.
Right.
I just think there's still a lot of applications for that in the industry. Most of the adoption so far has been with the parcel shippers because they turn the doors all day long, so they have a good path to ROI. But I think that has a long road ahead.
I've seen Smartpak in real life. I've seen it in action. So very, very cool solution. So phase 4, Amanda, coming to you. What's your favorite in phase 4?
Oh, for me, it's got to be fulfillment edge in the collaboration with robotics. I think just the fact that you're kind of moving from now having the like wearable device plus a fulfillment edge to help kind of orchestrate the workflow, and then now being able to collaborate with a robot to just really make that, I think, picking operation like more optimized and make workers more productive. That's my favorite phase 4 solution.
Mark, I know I'm always making you back cleanup, but what's your favorite?
Amanda's making it easy on me. Motionworks Warehouse, it's really grew out of the ATR. Of course, Gartner's got us in the leader quadrant there for indoor location solutions. So I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 different technologies that can give you location data. Motionworks Warehouse is largely built on the ATR, but also includes ultra wideband. So you can have active solution, you can have passive. And you just create rules and zones. If something enters this zone, you can have rules kick off, and so you can start to manage by exception and do some of those things that we'd like to do a little bit differently. You just got to find the right place for it. I think bonded warehouses, cross docks, things like that are where there's either high value on having true real-time visibility to the items, like in a bonded warehouse, or it's very dynamic and unstructured, like a cross dock. That's where I think that the ROI is in the near term.
I love it, and I love the idea of finding that right fit. And I think that's why Carrie and I are always passionate about what we bring to the table as barcoding is finding that right fit by asking good questions around process and people, because I think that's what really brings out that right fit from a technology standpoint. So final phase 5. Amanda, what's your favorite Zebra solution in phase 5?
Yeah, and I don't know it's so much a solution, but this is an area where professional services start to come in to really help a customer kind of uncover and transform their operations, and looking at how you can start using like machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I don't know, I think, Mark, maybe you might have a specific solution, but for me, it's more like now being able to really leverage that professional services portfolio.
No, I agree with you. This is really an area of co-innovation, in my view. It's when the customer's got a problem that is, it's costing them, customer service, it's costing them money, whatever it is. I was at a food manufacturer not too long ago, and they were having trouble with just inventory rotation, and they were looking at tagging everything, and we just brainstormed about all kinds of ways we can use RFID or other sensor technology to make sure that they were rotating inventory properly, because they had huge write-downs. Mm-hmm. And it's a matter of saying, okay, we've got all these different solutions that are ready off the shelf, but we've got lots of other capabilities too. How do we solve this problem for you?
I love that idea of co-innovation. And I think that's something that, again, we really take to heart, because I think that in general, right, between barcoding and Zebra Technologies and our customers, the key is that we're all working together, right? And we're all finding places of strength and what we bring to the table, like you're building any good team, right? So you want to play to people's strengths. And I think that's that idea of co-innovation is awesome. Yeah. So one of our, I just saw a note come through, better together. Yes, indeed. One better together. So excellent. Well, I have looks like we are pretty much on time. I had one question. You guys are gonna laugh. Is a zebra black with white stripes or white with black? Very serious question coming from our registrants. Thoughts? Discuss.
Well, at Zebra, we have Zippy as our like zebra mascot, and he likes to say it's whatever you interpret him as. I think it's some days he feels like he's white with black stripes, other days he's in a I'm black with white stripes mood.
I did my best to be zebra thematic today. So, well, great. I want to do some final thoughts. Really appreciate the time that you all have spent with us today. I think it's been great diving into these topics, and I wanna have everybody have a chance to kind of have a final takeaway for our audience. And Carrie, I'm going to save you for last because hint, I'd like the final takeaway to be work with your partners. So you can wrap it up. But let's start, Amanda, with you as what would you kind of have as that final takeaway for our listening audience?
Yeah, I'd say when you look at the model, that to look at it as a lens of, not how do I improve this existing process in the way I'm already doing it, and maybe think about, if I had to do it over again, like what is the challenge I'm seeing, and how would I make it more efficient versus, trying to already like sit within, the it's not issue, but the way maybe that operation is already structured, kind of look at it from a state of where to do over again, leveraging this model, like how would I approach this? Because there are so many new solutions out there, new different ways of approaching business challenges. I think it's a good way to approach that situation.
I like it. So kind of having that clean slate mentality. You were starting from zero. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I think just building on Amanda's response, absolutely. Take a fresh look at from the customer's operational objectives. Starting with that and the KPIs, because we know if we link a project to a KPI that customers already agreed is really important to them and they need to do better, then everybody's going to win at the end of the day. And take a fresh look at that and just realize this to me this is really a kind of a step change in the way supply chains will be run going into the future from that that old way of looking at things, that transaction mobility. And we're going to be on this journey for a long time as an industry. This is not going to happen overnight by any means. From Windows to Android to all the real-time stuff, we're going to be having this conversation for some years to come.
Awesome. Carrie, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda and Mark both hit the nail right on the head. I think a lot of this is about asking the questions from the beginning. Again, what's going well, what's not going well, using kind of our people process mentality, and then work with our partners to come up with really good solutions that meet those, and then roadmap how we get there. Mark made a great point through this that I hadn't thought about, and I'm a little early in my journey of this model, but not everyone's going to get to 5. And as a partner and as an advocate for our customers, we're responsible for working with them to figure out what phase makes the most sense for them and working to get there. And that's the beauty of these models, is you can figure out what the final destination is and then work together to figure out the steps that we need to take to get there. So it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to working with our internal team and the Zebra team to see how we can make this work.
Me too. Well said. And I'll make a plug for a book called The Technology Fallacy. We used this for our Geek Tank series a couple years ago, but what I loved about it was it talked about affordances, what technology affords to you once you start using it, and that a lot of times some of those affordances are hidden and you don't know until you start using the technology. And they made the example of duct tape, right? So the purpose of duct tape and how people use it are vastly different, right? Sky's the limit for how duct tape has improved our lives. So I think my summation of this is it's a very exciting time to be a supply chain geek. It's a very exciting time for our industry. We have obviously with Zebra Technologies a lot of resources to come to the table with to solve problems and really improve people's lives. And I think that's what really makes it, it just makes it all worthwhile, right? So thank you all very much.
Jody, we actually have one more question. So if you can have the guests fill in this one. Do you want me to read it to you?
Please.
Sure. The question is, most companies are happy to be in phase 1 and maybe 2. What professional services and or programs does Zebra have to encourage customers to consider further phases?
That's a great question.
That is a great question, and we have closely aligned, with our professional services team, so that if you're in a dialogue with a customer and that you identify, here's a KPI we want to improve, here are some tools that we think can get us there. Okay, how do we get from point A to point B? Because there's some basic phase 0 stuff. We talked about phase 5 being co-innovation, but really this whole thing is co-innovation. So there's some discovery, basic, outlining the requirements, the ROI, and all the way through go live. I know, Barcoding Inc. would be, doing a very similar process, from their side, and partner with you to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly why we really work hard to have long-term partnerships with our customers, because we want to be able to get to know your business and be able to know and help guide those discussions, because not everything is a right fit. So in moving through those phases, right, where are you going to get your goals met, your specific goals met? And I think that is the benefit of having a partner like Barcoding at the table, working with Zebra and working with you. But it is a team effort, and I think that's probably the key. And that combination of partner and OEM, so in this case Barcoding Zebra, that's where you're going to start to see, which levers you can pull in terms of services and how we can really encourage folks to look at their business and consider those further phases. Carrie, I don't know if you had other thoughts on that.
I've taught you well, Jody.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Jeff. That was a great one. And the name of the book again, because another question came in, it's called The Technology Fallacy. And I will include that in my follow-up for everyone who participated today, so that you have the link. But I found it to be very enjoyable, and it really walks through it's another model, but it walks through digital transformation. So early, developing, and mature, and really that combination of tech and people. And that's what I really like about that book. So if there are other questions, and I don't see any other ones coming in, thank you, Iris, for grabbing those for us. But feel free to reach out. So you'll have my email, and I'm happy to, get you the answers that you need from these experts or others, and we'll make it work. But once again, thank you, Zebra. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Carrie. Really appreciate your time today. And it was wonderful to huddle up with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Hi, did you enjoy the huddle? I sure hope so. We were really excited to have you as part of our conversation and would love to continue it. If you have a question or a challenge that you're facing and Barcoding can help you out, please reach out. You can contact us on barcoding.com anytime, or any of our social media channels. Again, we are here to help and would love to chat with you. Final ideas. Did you like the huddle so much you wanted to join? Do you want to come on air with me? Do you know someone who would be a great fit, or a topic that you'd like to see covered? If so, reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and I am happy to check in with you and talk through what we might be able to accomplish together. I would love to hear your ideas. We're always looking for new topics. So if you have an idea for Huddle, or you'd like to be on a Huddle, contact me and we will make it happen. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.